Hey there, Russ here. Welcome back to the shop. Okay, today we're going to talk about finger joints, and in particular, a finger joint jig. Now, I'm going to show you something here today that you've never heard before, and I'm going to prove to you that you can take the same finger joint jig that you make and be able to make any size finger joint that you want. The only thing you need to control in order to take and make a finger joint using the same jig is the size of your dado stack, how wide, how thick a curve you're cutting. So in other words, if I take this jig here, this is the one I made. There's the knobs I made the other day. And this is made out of 3 pieces of plywood laminated together with a panel on the bottom. The panel is underneath 2 of them, and it's up against the 3rd one here to sandwich everything together. I put a couple pieces up here so that my dial indicator can set against here, and I can adjust this with using my dial indicator, and I'll show you how that all works. So you can dial that thing in down to 1/1000 of an inch in just a few seconds, and then you can make finger joints all day long. And if you want to change it, it only takes you a couple minutes to make a change, and then go and do them that thick. Everything you do is based on the thickness of your blade. This key has no effect on the thickness of your fingers, other than it can't be thinner than this piece, obviously, because it has to set down over here. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Then I'm going to prove it to you, because I'm going to take and make 1/4 inch finger joints here. When I get done, then I'm going to go in there and I'm going to use this finger joint, which I also made, and you'll see this one is made with a little drill. That's a 1/16 inch drill, and that is what I'm going to use for the key. And I'll still make my 1/4 inch joints here, finger joints, accurately and perfectly using this one in the same way I'm going to do it with that one. So let me show you why that is true. And what that means is that if I change my dado stack size, I can make any size dado stack finger joint I want from the same finger joint jig. If I make it like this with using a drill here, I epoxied it in, then I cut my kerf, and depending on how far away from this pin I am, as to how thick my finger joints are going to be. Let's go over this and you'll understand a little bit better. So we're standing here in front of the table saw, right here. And normally I would set this up. I would take this and put it here, put my piece up here and run everything through like this. But because you're standing right here, want to see what I'm doing, you can't see over here, right? Even if I get out of your way, you still can't see what's going on. So we're going to do something that's OTB here that you probably haven't seen anybody do before. And that is that I'm going to reverse this. And we're going to do all our cutting today with this thing in this way. Instead, going through my blade here, and we're going to set this thing up right here. So let's get this lined up here. You can see I can still make adjustment here on this blade here. And all we're worried about, to get the right size finger joint, this one here, we need to set this. And all we care about is the distance from this side of this key to that side of the blade. Let me zoom in here just a little bit, let you see this a little closer for a moment. Try not to mess this shot up. Okay, so here we are right here in front of my saw. And now let's set this width. So I take my 1/4 inch spacer, same width as my dado stack. If I had a 1/2 inch blade in here, I would use a 1/2 inch spacer. And I put that in between the keyway and the edge of that tooth. And now I know that I'm set pretty much to 1/4 of an inch. So I can adjust this. I'm actually going to go just a little bit wider for that finger, because I want this thing to fit kind of tight. The further away from the blade that your key is, the tighter that joint is going to be. This determines the size of the joint. That determines how tight that joint is going to fit together by that distance. Now that we have this set, this is an old one, and I can see how much space I have here. So I'm actually pretty happy with where that's set right now. But let's see what we have. So I'm going to take a piece of wood, and I'm going to make a couple of fingers on this. Let's do this. I don't want to get confused, so I'm going to put an X so I know not to use that. And let's make a quick cut. First, let's check our height. So I put this here, and actually right now it is set to the height. So we're going to set that down on my platform, gently push it over till it's just touching my keyway. Now I'm just going to hold it right there, like this, and I'm setting right up next to it, pushing on it here gently to make sure it's against there, and I'm pushing down to make sure that I'm flat. And now without it moving, I'm ready to make this cut. And let's take a measurement on that finger. So, if I go in here, and you can see, I'm just over a 1/4 inch. Now, I will tell you, this kerf, if I measure this kerf, that kerf measures 1/64 of an inch over 1/4. That's what that blade is. So I want to make sure these fingers, it's going to be a little loose, because this is actually 1/28 of an inch instead of 1/64 of an inch over 1/4. So do we want that to be a little tighter? Yeah, let's make it a little tighter. So I'm going to take, and I'm going to put my dial indicator on here, and move it in, and this pin is going to set against my jig. And I'm going to bring this up somewhere close to 0 and lock it down. Now I'm going to 0 it out just to make it easy. Now, let's move this thing over about 5 thousandths or so, I'd say. I'm going to loosen these up just about 1/4 of a turn, and I'm going to tap this now so that I can see my gauge as I move. So, just like that, I'm going to snug this back down, and I think we're good to go. So, and I'll tell you what, let's take one more cut just for fun. Since we got plenty of time, you brought your coffee, right? You did bring coffee, right? So now I put it on here. I gently push it against my keyway here. Pinch it, and let's cut it. And let's measure that second finger. Now I am a full 1/64 of an inch over 1/4 inch. That is the same exact size as that. I should get a nice snug fit at this point. So let's find out. I'm going to take some pieces of wood here and something to use to help with the tear out. And let's take 1 minute and let's make a joint. Okay? So I'm going to bring this in, bring it over. I'm going to put that on front of it just to keep the tear out their minimum. And let's make a joint. Minor mistake. I forgot. Normally I do it, but when I'm in front of the camera, I always forget. But it's getting me. Because of the way this is set up, this thing is spitting chunks of sawdust and chips back in right directly in my face. Two things you need to do when you do it cutting this way, where it's coming at you. Just like on a motorcycle. You got to wear eye protection to protect your eyes and keep your mouth shut. Need I say more? So, let's go back to making this joint. So, I'm going to bring it back in alignment. And let's make the joint cut. This time, without getting a mouth shut. Put that one in backwards. So now we have a key spacing. Bring this one in up against it. And put my spacer in there to protect it from tear out. And let's make a cut. Now somehow I shifted slightly, but I think you can get the gist of what we're doing here. So let me unzoom this thing. And let's as you can see, this is one tight joint. So, and I knew it was going to be tight. It's really too tight, but I could make that work if I was doing it. If I was going to do this and I didn't like this, I would just take and make sure I set that so that I know what that's going to be. I can predict what it is, as you saw when I was doing all these cuts. When I cut these two, I was measuring, and that told me what I had here. Because if I measure these now, whoops, they come out to right at 1/64 of an inch over. And if I go into between, that's 1/64 of an inch over. I know it's hard for you to see that. You have to take my word for it. So those fingers are identical to the size of that space in between. That is why you're getting such a tight joint. You want that joint to be a little loose. When you measure it, back it off about 1/128th of an inch or so. A little bit more. That's what you're going to want. So, now that you've seen how to make these things using this jig, what I want to prove to you now is that actually you can do this without, and it doesn't matter your key, what size that keyway is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my fence off here. I have another jig that I made right here. And this one, instead of that 1/4 inch key, this has a 1/16 inch drill bit that I have in here. And it's epoxied in. And that is now going to be our stop pin for doing finger joints. So let's set this up. So I'm going to put this on here. And I'm just going to bring it up. And let's get this thing adjusted. To this. So. Let me lower my blade. There we go. Now we're in between here. Now let's set our spacer to our 1/4 inch again. So I move this. I set that right up against my piece. Let me snug this down. And let's do a quick cut. Let's see what size this thing is, so we know whether or not we have to move it. And we should only have to move it once. We're not done. We need to set the height of the blade. Definitely need to set this. So, all right, let's make a quick cut and see what size we got. And our finger joint is just under. It's just about 1/28 of an inch over. So I'm going to use that as our joint. Let's cut these again. And this time, we'll do it from this side. So I don't get confused, I'm going to put an X on them so that I know this is the end we're working with. And now we put one of them up here. Now remember, this is only 1/16 of an inch. Same procedure. Gently against the stop. Down against my pad. And let's make our cuts. Let's try to help that tear out. There's one. Put this in this way. This one in this way. Here we go. And now, we have a nice fitting joint. The height didn't come out right, but other than that, I don't know why I came off centered on this. I did something wrong when I was setting it up, but I know I'm going to have to redo this. That's why I redid it. But as you can see, the actual fingers, they fit pretty good. I would not be ashamed of this joint here. Whoop, that's the wrong side. So anyway, I think you get the point that you can actually make finger joints even with the same jig. And if I change this out to 1/2 inch, blade, I could use this same jig with only that 1/16 inch pin and use it to make 1/2 inch joints on here. Just always make sure that you're gently there. This will determine your groove, and the distance between here determines the thickness of your fingers. So that's how you make a joint. I hope this didn't take too long. I really did take longer than I'd hoped it would. But if you have any questions about any of this, let me know. But what I've proven to you here is that once you make the jig, and if you use it with only a 1/16 inch pin, you can actually use that jig on any size dado stack, as you saw. So your dado stack will determine the size of your fingers. And that's how you determine what you want for a spacing in between. Just always make sure you're against that pin when you push it through. So whether you do it this way, reverse, like this, side saddle, or if you turn it around and do it the right way, it'll come out the same when you get done. And you have to practice using this a little bit at first. And you get comfortable with it after a short time. But it's nice that you can actually make adjustments on this. Because if I want to make a hinge, then I would make this joint a lot. I would then take this joint here and make it a lot looser, like this. Now that will make a nice hinge, because I left these a little smaller, a little looser than I did those. Sorry. So anyway, if you want, I can take this in a video, take this thing here and turn this into a hinge if you want me to. It only takes about 5 minutes. All you have to do is take this over somewhere, set it flat against the surface, like so, and then drill a hole down through here when these are all lined up. Then take it off and grind your fingers over round on the ends on all of them, and this thing will work exactly like a hinge there without any problem, and be nice and smooth on this one, because that is a nice smooth finish and fit. So if you want to see me turn this into a hinge real quick, let me know. If I get enough people asking about it, then I'll consider doing that, so you can see how easy it is to go to that. Also, I was talking to Rusty about where is it? About these wood joints. These wood knobs. Here we go. And he asked me, he wanted to get a closer look at this to see. But there's a couple of quick things I wanted to tell you. Here's one I was doing. This one here I made with a slide-in T-nut. This one I made with a 3-prong T-nut. And I talked about the differences in a couple videos ago. But this one gives you the advantage that because that is so thin, that T-nut, that slide-in type, this all down here underneath is all wood. I could take this and make this thing even thinner than it is now. This one is as narrow as I can make it because it has the T-nut, and the T-nut on this is right there. It has a longer stem on the T-nut, and it's bigger round. This is a 3/4 inch round all the way around it. My dog's standing right here next to me. Since I started the video, she's been sitting here and standing here. So anyway, I just took this out and I rough cut it down like I did here on my, going outside. 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 There's a dog out there. You probably can't see that. It's too bright. Somebody's walking their dogs out here. They all stop at the mailbox. I don't know why my mailbox is so special. And she goes nuts. She has to go outside and bark. Or actually, to do it here if I let her. She's just so loud. But anyway, with these nuts, I took and I then can grind it down on the belt sander to smooth it out to a nice, pleasing shape. You have to be careful when you're doing this. This one, you can see I blew it out on the side. You can see the actual T-nut. I came too close to it. But this one is a lot closer this way than this one, because this one is a 3/4 inch round. You have to give it more space all the way around so not to touch it. In fact, on this one, if you look carefully right there, you can see where I started to blow through. You can see the metal right there. This one, almost, I really took off a little too much, but it still functions. In fact, this one will still function as ugly as it looks. But I can sand this down now and get an even smaller knob than I will with a 3-prong T-nut. The slide-in T-nut gives you that option to go even smaller. So depending on what kind of wood knob you're going to make as to which one of these you would use, if they're going to be very small, I would always go with the slide-in T-nut type. So if you need more information on that, I've done several videos on wooden knobs. Go back and watch through those, and you'll see what I'm talking about here. So, Rusty, thanks for your question. I hope this answers. If it doesn't, let me know, and I'll try to do something else, make it a little easier. But this one only needs sanding if I really wanted to use it, and that's the way I did. So, that's where I'm at. I hope you learned something about finger joints here, and some facts about finger joints that you probably didn't know. But you can make a finger joint with that as small as a 1/16 inch finger joint that I made over here on that table saw. So you can do this, and I would not make finger joints any this small. In fact, let me talk real quick about a rule of thumb about how big a finger joint do you want. If you're going to do a piece of wood and you want to put 1/16 inch, which is what that blade is, you want to use that for your blade, you can make 1/16 inch dados, but it's going to take a lot of them. Now, as a rule, in 1 inch, you have 16. That means you're going to make 8 cuts in here on this just to get 1 inch of finger joints. So if you have a 4-inch board, that's a lot of finger joints that you have to cut at this size. I wouldn't do it. I base my size of my finger joint on how wide the overall board is. Count how many finger joints you have to cut, and try not to get it much more than 8, if you can help it, or 10 finger cuts as you move along. If you got more than that, then you might want to think about upping the size of your dado stack and make your finger joints bigger. Now, in the next video that I do about finger joints, I don't know how soon that'll be out, but I'm going to show you how to use the anchor jig and a kerf maker to make finger joints of any size you want with the 1/4 inch dado stack. So you don't even have to change out your dado stack to make finger joints of any size. I'm using the anchor jig. So stay tuned. That's coming. I hope you stick around for that. And I have lots of other things I'm going to be doing. So comments, suggestions, thoughts, or let me know how you do it. Maybe I'll learn a new method. Just leave it in the comments. I read them all, and a lot of my ideas come from what things that you guys say to me. So I do read them all, and I enjoy it. If you like this video or you learned something here, hit that like button. Lets me know I'm doing the right thing and that I should keep doing it. Most importantly, though, please come back again, because I'm nowhere near done. Thanks. And we'll see you guys again soon. You might want to bring your coffee next time, because sometimes these things do get out of control. So we'll see you guys again very soon. Bye.